Hello BookTube, it's Becky from Becky Writes, this is Becky Reads, and this is my spoiler-free review of Born a Crime, Stories from a South African Childhood by Trevor Noah. Born a Crime is Trevor Noah's memoir of growing up in South Africa under the apartheid and then in the first few years after the apartheid was lifted. It is his story of growing up in between worlds. Trevor Noah's father is a white Swiss man who went from Switzerland to South Africa where he met Trevor's mother, and Trevor Noah's mother is a Xhosa woman who is a native African woman, and they met and decided to have a child together. But because of the apartheid, they could not live together as a family, and so Trevor's father maintained a home in a white part of town, and Trevor's mother moved him around, kind of evading the system of apartheid that kept Black Africans isolated and unable to move up socially. The apartheid features prominently in Trevor's childhood. It's almost like it's another character that influences where he can live and how his life functions. The apartheid looked at Jim Crow South laws to create this huge mantle of oppression that took people of color and pitted them against one another. There was a category for sort of black, there was a category for Indian, there's a category for colored, there was a category for white. And the highest part of that hierarchy was white, and they pitted all the other groups against one another, and into that milieu is born Trevor Noah, this very light-skinned African boy who has a mother with a lot of force and a lot of energy, who is trying to raise him to see the world as a much broader place than apartheid South Africa is currently allowing. Now, if you're looking for this to be a comedy memoir, if you're looking for something in the vein of like Yes Please, or Bossy Pants, or even in the vein of like Mindy Kaling's Is Everyone Hanging Out Without Me, you'll be disappointed. This is not a comedy memoir. There are humorous moments and humorous elements to the stories that Trevor Noah is telling, but this is a really poignant and often difficult collection of stories about a young man growing up in a truly violent and impoverished area and being surrounded by a lot of insecurity and having a lot of the things that we in the United States take for granted not normal for him. For example, things like going to school, being able to be seen out of doors with his mother or father, the ability to speak the same language as the majority of your neighbors. These are things that we so often in the United States take for granted, but in South Africa, they just weren't always guaranteed. One of the things I appreciated most about these stories was that it helped me to understand both Trevor Noah as a person, as a memoir should, but also South Africa. My knowledge of South Africa really is around Nelson Mandela and reading his autobiography, and this really illustrates a different context. Mandela himself had a lot of privilege, and so my understanding of the Black experience was mated through somebody who had more privilege, but Trevor Noah didn't. And so these are often difficult stories about him being ostracized and othered because he wasn't a part of the Black community, he wasn't a part of the white community, he wasn't a part of the colored community, and he was trying to find his people. Some of the stories are hilarious, some of them have definite gaps in American culture. Being beaten by one's parents is very normative in South Africa, where we would be absolutely shocked and horrified by that in the United States. There's also a very serious trigger warning for domestic abuse. If that is something that you can't read, you need to know that that is a feature of his stories. He had an abusive stepfather who was a nasty, nasty guy. But one of the things I like about this collection is that we know the end of the story. While Trevor Noah doesn't talk at all about how he got into stand-up and how he made it to where he is, these are just about his very young childhood years. We know that he is successful. We know that he escapes. He gets out of the poverty that surrounds him. He is at the height of a game that many Americans growing up with all the privileges in the United States don't even achieve. So we know that there's a happy ending, but there are some very hard stories to listen to. Now, I read this as an audiobook and I would suggest it 100%. Hearing Trevor Noah tell his own stories is powerful. I think it's always powerful when you hear someone tell their own story. But the other thing that makes the audiobook more powerful is that since Trevor Noah is a master of accents, he really brings to life all the different communities that he talks about. Language is so important to him in South Africa. It's what allows him to move between communities. He speaks Xhosa, which is his mother's native tongue. He also speaks Zulu, which is sort of the rival African tribal tongue. He speaks English and Afrikaans, and I think he might speak German. So he has this broad vocabulary that allows him to move between communities. And because he can do that, he can speak with the accents of the people that he's representing as he talks about all the characters of his childhood. You wouldn't be able to pick that up on the page, but you can certainly hear that in the audiobook. So if you were into audiobooks at all, this is one that I think will definitely translate better as an audiobook than as a print book. I gave this 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed this, and it surprised me because I expected it to be a comedy memoir. I expected it to be funny, and much like the No Land's Man by Asif Manvi, which was the book I hated the most out of all the books I read last year, this one was one that I thought was going to be comedy, and it wasn't. But No Land's Man didn't create a poignant story of a young man struggling. It didn't create poignant characters that I identified with. I didn't root for him. But Trevor Noah takes a story that's not necessarily funny, and he gives it so much heart and so much soul, and so I kind of didn't mind that it wasn't a comedy memoir. I cared so much for him and his mother. I so wanted them to succeed. I so felt for them as they struggled, and that just mattered so much. It was a gift, and he's a talented storyteller. I am hopeful that he will write more books and tell more stories because I loved it. Like I said, 5 out of 5 stars. So if you are looking for an audiobook that is going to push you, that is going to have high moments of joy but also some deep moments of sorrow, if you like Trevor Noah's comedy, if you enjoy him on The Daily Show, this will give you so much more insight. I really suggest picking it up as an audiobook. I think you'll enjoy it. Comment down below and let me know if you've read Born a Crime by Trevor Noah. I would love to know what your thoughts are. I hope you guys are all doing well, and I will talk to you soon. Bye!